to the Sacred Temple. Thank you for being here today. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update about what's been going on for me, just because we haven't had a chat in a while, and I wanted to just share. I also want to talk with you about a topic today: negative entities, negative attachments, and what to do with them. And I was going to do 2 separate videos, but I kind of thought, let's just have a chat. So before we do, please, if you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you're always able to get updates about new content, and like this video. That does help support, and if you enjoy this content, please share it if you feel it might help someone. So I wanted to talk with you just about where I'm at with my life firstly, because I really love and appreciate all of you, and I know that I've been quite absent on social, and including YouTube, and it's been such a big shift. The birthing of the Sacred Temple is what all of this centers around, and what that meant for me and my spiritual life, what that's an expression of. So over the last year or year-ish, since I had the impulse to create the Sacred Temple and the Daughters of Eden Holy Feminine Temple for light, the Divine Feminine Light, I had been processing a lot. And I've been in a constant journey of processing traumatic material from my past, and really weaving my way back up into ascension processes. That's what I've been doing with my life really, really, really intensely for the last 6 years. A lot of all that I did was just working with spirit and working with traumatic material and clearing that out of my life force and out of my system. And as I did that, my process of remembrance happened, my process of ascension happened, and I was able to become so much lighter. And then I remember in that time, a couple of years ago, my guides were saying to me to surrender, and that I was going through a deep cleansing, and that my structures of my energy needed to restructure, which is true, because when you have significant enough trauma, even the energetic structures, they get sort of wonky, and they need to be replenished or rewritten, almost, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so for a long time I was just processing memories as they would arise, and then getting the light side of it, getting my beliefs better, getting the past life memories, and then another traumatic material would come up and I would have to face that, processing that. And it's this constant dance of healing and of raising your energy and your frequency. And once I got to a certain level or a certain point with that process, my guides told me, they would say things like, okay, the flame has been lit. And what they were talking about was that I had mended the pathways in my energy body enough that now my actual essence, which is my spiritual substance of my essence, could actually come and flow and be pumped through my heart and out into the rest of my body. And I would see it as this golden, ethereal blood, like in terms of consistency, the substance was like that, but it was it's like a golden honey substance, spiritual but physical light, and it was moving through my cells. And it started to be that I had developed the capacity to hold and embody my essence and nurture it through my system. And this brings up higher light up into these centers, into the pineal gland, and allows you to produce the sacred oils, as they're known in the allegories like the Bible and things, which is really to produce dimethyltryptamine, melatonin, and the other one I always forget, that help to create this saturation of the blood that is actually saturating your being in your own essence light and your life force energy, really being able to live from that. And that is really how our energy bodies are supposed to flow. And for me, it was once that I got to that point, I didn't have to do as much intense memory processing and intense spiritual inner work. I could actually live, because I was able to have breathing space now that I had mended those structures, and I could actually live in a more full way. I was more alive. And then it also, at the same time, getting that going, at one point it also brought up really intense, there was a point where it brought up a really intense reawakening of my divine feminine pathways and my sexual pathways, which makes sense if you think about Kundalini and life force. And I had to release a lot of emotional and energetic scarring from the womb and things like that. And that was very, very intense. And I went into really difficult states at times. And what I noticed for example, when I look at my YouTube channel, is that like there were periods where I was able to be very consistent and very in my heart. And then there are some videos, just as an example of trying to explain my journey here, that I could hear in my voice that was feeling the pain. So there were some days where I just had so much pain from old nervous system trauma in my body that I was doing it, but it was really challenging. And it just became more challenging because in order to come from a high place and not just be doing work like this because you should, or because you should keep up with it on social or whatever, you have to come from your heart. And for me, especially just the way that I'm built, I have to be in a spacious place. My starting point has to be peace, because that's when channeling can come through, inspiration can come through. And when I had all that stuff going on, trying to mend the divine feminine, sexual trauma stuff particularly, it was very difficult. It was very hard on my body as well. So that's part of why there's been a bit of a dip in the production of content, because I'm not someone that wants to the best of my ability, I've fallen into it occasionally, but I'm not someone that wants to make content with you just for the sake of it. Like, that's not what service is. And it's so true that you have to be like the path and your flow of your service or purpose. It has its own weaving and its own path, and you have to be surrendered to it, even beyond what seems practical or what your mind thinks. And I was going through very intense initiations, and there was a lot of processing of the worst traumatic material, the worst traumas that I went through. And with that came very intense psychic experiences as well that made me quite ungrounded at times. Memories and timelines crisscrossing, and just having yourself together to create really good content. Sometimes it just wasn't where spirit wanted my focus to be. But all of this was happening so that I could actually be in a strong enough, hold enough light, hold enough energy place to birth the sacred temple. And I'm so proud of me and you and us being able to do that now, because that offering is the expression of my essence, and that's why it came in tandem with the journey that I was on. Everything in your life is reflecting of what's happening alchemically, internally. So the interesting thing was, once I birthed my essence and I birthed the temple, Then Spirit had been saying to me for a while, like, okay, your life is going through a massive upgrade. And I had to change my life, not crazy, but just in an upgrade kind of way. So I moved, and you can see I'm still in the like moving zone. I haven't found furniture that I enjoy yet, so we just have my chair and scratching post. And yes, I'm also not a believer in buying things just because, you know, you think you should have a couch. It's okay. I'd rather not do that. So I had to move to the place of my dreams, and I actually started doing much more intentional, conscious manifesting because Spirit told me to. Everything in my life is because Spirit told me to. Where I was consciously manifesting and visualizing for a couple of months there exactly what I wanted. And I was able to create it, and I'm so happy. And I think I may put up some pictures for you to see, but I manifested my horse, whose name is Venus, who I love and have wanted since I was a little girl. I have manifested living on a beautiful property where there's space for her, and there's beautiful animals, and geese and ducks and cats, and in nature. And yeah, everything's been upgraded. And it was so funny because my car started dying, my phone started dying, my bed broke, I had to get a new computer. All the things like were happening where things were breaking because life was saying, like, my vibration. So alchemically what that's reflecting is when your vibration, for me anyway, in my path, it is too big and too strong to stay in the smallness of the life that was before. And it needed to match the higher level of richness that I had created. And I don't just mean financial richness. I actually mean the richness of your life energy, of your life force. Okay, because that's what, to create a rich life is what I had wanted. And that's what powerfully cultivating your essence, building yourself up and up and up, and then richly saturating yourself in your essence, that is what will start to reflect in your experience and what has to be in your experience. You won't be able to live in a limited way that you were before. You become my guide's trying to help me explain, but he's talking about electromagnetics, and you become like a capacitor, that like the capacity for your energy, it starts to become larger, and your life has to become larger. So, you know, that was a really physical learning for me as well, as like, you know, just when you heal, you're going to need to change your life, and you're going to need to trust in the next level, and you need to go to your next level. And what else can I say? So I shifted that, and in all of this too, I also integrated and shifted a lot of parts of myself, let's say, that had been previously I'd been less connected to. So you might find, just for example, I notice in me, in my videos, that there's a bit more of a, I don't know, like a strength or a confidence in my tone of voice. And I definitely still drop into my very feminine softness and heart, and it's still there as well. But for example, one of the things that I really consciously integrated was the masculine in myself, and the holy masculine, which came as a direct result of integrating and merging with the holy feminine. Often for women, it will be that you work with your feminine and then your masculine can come in, and men too. The feminine is the emotional part of you and all of that, and it needs the supportive structure of the solidity of the masculine and the safety and security energies of the masculine to hold and to be physical, to birth. You know, a lot of women, spiritual women, are spending a lot of time in their feminine, and often in a more wounded feminine, and they don't have the masculine balanced yet or fully expressed yet in themselves, and they kind of live a very high sort of non-physical spiritual kind of life, but then to manifest physically their inspirations or ideas, to birth them into physical reality, it requires the support of your holy masculine. And that was something that I had to reclaim as well. And I did some journeying with that and shamanic journeying with that. And so I noticed those things are much more balanced in me now as well. And I feel that I just, I was called to dedicate all that time to that. And then the process of my lifelong dream of buying my horse and living where I live now was because of what it meant to me, because of what it was vibrationally, it was my dream come true. It was freedom. It was all these things. There were any little blocks in the way of like your biggest dream happening had to be met and dissolved. So there were some challenges in that journey as well. And I just did not have the space to do all of that and give to you all as fully as I want to and want to be, and as present as I am with you now. So now that I have moved and I'm more settled, I'm able to have more space to create more content, and going to continue with the YouTube, but we're also going to be moving more into the classes that I did the other month. We're going to do one a month with the Sacred Temple. So 1 month it will be Sacred Temple, and 1 month it will be the Daughters of Eden Holy Feminine Temple, and continuing like that. And these will be free classes that I really invite you to please come along. Like I've said in earlier videos, I want us to stop being so dependent, just totally dependent on YouTube to be a meeting place for our spiritual communities. And yeah, that's going to be really cool. I also have the Holy Feminine Mentorship Elysium, which is about embodying your feminine energy, embracing your beauty, which really means embracing you as a divine expression of yourself, stepping into your full feminine power. And we still have some spaces in that, and that'll be in a short while. So do check that out if you want to. I do also offer a 6-month private mentorship called Dawn Dusk, which is very cool because I am taking you through the processes and rituals that the feminine spirit took me through to cross that horizon of a woman's inner dawn dusk, the inner horizon into the deepest darkness in yourself, so that you can go in there and go into the death places and pull out and rise out in resurrection and your magic. Women have this power and magic in there that is lost to you when you are avoiding the things that you are most afraid of. And when you get that back, you will feel incredibly powerful. So that's available as well. And we are also going to be creating a membership as well, so that to see the replays of the monthly classes, if you don't attend live but you want to see replays or have access to all the classes, you will be invited soon. It's not set up yet, but soon to join the membership. And you also get a lot of free content with that as well. So do watch this space and go to thesacredtemple.org, sign up to the newsletter there. Follow me on social, the Sacred Temple __ on Instagram particularly. I'm less and less on Facebook these days. And yeah, just let's connect and let's do this. Yay. So now that I've given you guys a wonderful update, I am just going to dive into the topic for today. I guess there's 2 topics here, but I was like, I'll do a separate video, but how about I just chat with you? So I want to talk with you about negative energy, negative entities, negative attachments, because I just felt I've had some experiences recently with other people, not myself, but other people, and I have had experiences with myself in the past too, regarding negative entities and things like that, and also spiritual people. And I felt and I feel spirit saying to me, hey, you need to talk about this in the spiritual community, because a lot of us have the wrong idea about the best approach. And there needs to be, it's like spirit is saying, hey, there needs to be a higher perspective and a better discussion about this. The quality of the information that's out there around negative attachments, removal of entities, clearing, all that sort of stuff is not, most of it is not ideal. And I'm actually just listening to spirit now. Okay, so my guide is explaining that he's saying that as the holy structures return to society, so the temple structures and things like that, there needs to be a proper, I'm just listening to him, there needs to be a proper understanding of how to balance energies. And I'm seeing this vision, I'm going to try to explain what he's saying as well with pictures. So it's like a picture of a temple, and it's the temple communities. Our higher consciousness is trying to come back to society. And we need to be able to hold the space for that. We need to be able to hold the space for that, and we need to have a clear space for that. So in order to hold the correct space for that, we have to understand about like negative energy and how to manage that. Okay, yes, he says, yeah, that's right. So let's talk about negative entities. The first thing actually I'm remembering when Spirit was talking to me about this was about your power, and about how humanity has been in a kind of just a skewed perception of our true power. And it is that illusion that low energy thrives on. And low energy conversation is a lot about illusion versus truth. Are you in illusion of yourself and this life and the world, or are you in truth? So when you're exposed to a negative energy around you, or a parasitic attachment in your field, there has to be, through law of attraction, law of mirroring, there is something in you that is making you a vibrational match to that. And it is the seat of illusion. Your illusions. What are your illusions? When I say that, I mean the non-truths in you, i.e. the negative beliefs. What are the illusions that you're believing? That's why this is about truth versus illusion, because you have to have a negative belief within you, negative pain or stored trauma in you, in order to attract something like that. There has to be illusion in you in order for you to attract something illusionary, or that works in illusion, I should say. Negative entities work with illusion. There has to be something in you that's a match to that. So thinking about that is one part of things. The other part of things is about the conversation has to be around, where is your vibration? What is your vibration doing? That's where your power is. So when we are in our heart, connected to our heart, our God force, remembrance of who and what you are, just enough. You don't have to be Buddha, you don't have to be perfect, but when you are, I guess, hooked into or centered into that, that's when you're vibrating on a higher dimensional frequency, a healthy, coherent wellness frequency, let's say, or higher dimensional just for this picture. Lower dimensional beings cannot see you, touch you. You don't exist to them, and they don't exist to you when you are up in that different dimension, because it's literally a different dimension. This is the first thing that we need to understand, and we really have to get this, because you can do white light visualizations and protective thingies all day, right? But if you are not vibrating in your heart, because a lot of people do those things from fear, if you are not vibrating in your heart, you're still dipping, your vibration's still dipping down into those lower dimensions. And so you're going to be exposed to that. The other important thing is to remember that it's like, okay, you know, we all dip from time to time. You're going to have lower emotions and triggers and things like that. It's just a matter of if you're staying down there. Because remember that if you come back up, those things can't come with you for very long. They can come with you for as long as it takes you to sort of fade out of that lower vibration. And that, depending on what the issue is for you, the hook, the illusion, the belief, it might be a very simple, quick thing, or it might be something that's more deeply set and you need to kind of go in and do some deeper inner healing before that will really move. Just depends. But it's important. The important message here is about truth and illusion, and about power as well. So where is your power? Where is our power when we're working with lower energy or just energy? It's always in the heart. There isn't any power in trying to wrap yourself in white light when you're simultaneously terrified. Okay? A lot of people will sit and they'll be like, I am white light, I am safe, I am safe. But they have this fearful energy underneath that's motivated you to do that. And for a time, that may help you because it will give you a sense of relief, a sense of an idea of protection that you'll be able to hook into for a little bit. But a lot of people feel like they have to constantly replenish that, and that if then there can be fear around, what if I disconnect from that? What if I go into a low vibration? Instead of this more balanced approach and approach of wholeness, where it's not really about that, it's about your state of being. It's about your heart and your connection to your heart. If you do a white light protection or some protection from this place, from a more neutral or more than neutral, loving place, or just neutral place, just not from fear, if you do it from love, you will have a beautiful holy white light around you. And it will be strong and it will be substantial because it will be rooted in the security that you find here, not the fear that you're trying to get away from. This applies to anything you might be doing, whether it's like I'm just using that as an example, a white light visualization or a full removal process of an entity that people do, a clearing of a room or a space, a clearing of your own field. What is the vibrational set point or root that you are hooked into? Are you clearing the room from a space of fear? Instead of clearing the room to say, okay, now it's clear and get a sense of relief, what you need to do is address the actual fear itself. Why do you feel unsafe? What does that part of you need? Okay, maybe that part of you just needs to be held in the connection, and really it usually is to feel your connection to source. Because when you feel that, when you replenish that and give that to yourself, you will know you're in an embodied felt way. That part of you will know that you're safe, that you're secure. And then sure, you might then clear your space or clear your field. But now you're not doing it because of fear. You're doing it because this feels nice and I would like more of this feeling of safety and security and warmth. That is a much different vibrational set point. When we do something or try to manifest something or focus our energy on any practice that we're doing, what matters most is your vibrational set point or root, and the energy that you start out from, i.e. the energy that you give, is the energy that you will get back. So that's why a lot of people, if they do protect, psychic protection and stuff from that, if they are doing it even unconsciously from a deep fear, it won't last very long. The issue will keep happening. They won't be able to focus, it just won't work, things like that. And it will actually feed a sense of disempowerment, because now you're dependent on those things instead of your connection to Source and God, the only thing that you should be hooked into. So this is where your power is. And if we think about all of that, then we can think about, okay, if there is a negative entity hooked into my field or in my space, or someone that you're healing or someone you love, whatever, what is the approach? The approach is to go towards the feeling that you get when that negative energy is bothering you, if you have conscious or psychic awareness of it. What is the vibration that you are vibrating at, meaning the illusion that you're believing or the pain that you're feeling when it's bothering you? Or also just in general, if you can look at your life and feel or see like there's been a theme since this has started happening. What is that energetic or emotional theme been? Then do your inner healing work on that issue. Forget about the entity. No need to go near it. Part of something that I see is people really saying, okay, let's directly go towards the entity, like have an interaction with it. And more often than not, there are exceptions to this, but more often than not, it's not necessary, because that's not where your power is. And when you go towards the entity, when you have not yet removed it, and therefore you're kind of still in it, if this makes sense, that is where there can be experiences of trickery, of falsity. These beings work with illusion, trickery, and they can, if you decide to psychically open up to that, like, even more deeply, or, with your mind, they can play a trick on your mind. And you might, for example, you might think that you're like working it out and you're solving it, but it's really, it's really some kind of illusion. And that's not going to be the case if you're a practiced psychic and you can tell the difference. But, or if you are coming from a place of strength and love, but it's just for safety, it's not necessary, and it's not where your power is. So what you want to do is notice the emotions, the belief, the illusion that's going on. And the identifier is, when this has happened to you, what do you notice? What are you feeling? And or is there been a recent kind of theme of low vibration or pain or belief in your life that is playing out since this has started happening? And as far as using your mind to help you solve the issue, that's as far as you should go with your mind. These beings work on the level of the mind, and the mind also typically, it's, working with spiritual energy is not the mind's strong suit, because it's built for dealing with the third dimensional stuff and structures and things. So we don't want to go into it with a place of like figuring it out and controlling, which is what the mind may try to do, especially if you have fear. What you want to do is notice the triggering themes that I said, and you also then want to hook into your own heart center, your connection to Source or God, and from that place, ask for intuitive knowing, understanding, clarity, and support and guidance. So you might drop in and say, okay, I have this issue. What do I need to know about this? How can I resolve this? What is the highest path for this? And I give my guides and angels permission to help answer this and support me to find my power here and to help protect me. So invite your guides, etc., to help you in a conscious way, and then wait and listen using your intuition. So you're psychically perceiving the answer, and you might get guidance and information about what you need to change. You might get a download about the entity, about what it looks like and what it is and what it's doing and all of that. And that's just because you're hooking into this topic and your psychic brain is receiving info, light information. And if you set your intentions of like, what do I need to know about this? It's happening because you need to know something with that. And just gathering that information is going to help you to know what you need to do. It's also just as simple as, you don't even have to be psychic. It can also just be as simple as resolving those emotions. So however you normally work with a low belief or a low emotion, can you please help this part of yourself that's involved in this? Do you need to give yourself compassion? Do you need to do some therapeutic work with an old trauma? Do you need to have stronger boundaries? What is the theme that's come up? What do you need? And just work with it emotionally and then intuitively in terms of perception, understanding, clarity, and support. If you do those two things, all from this place, from starting here, being connected to your heart and yourself, your essence, you will have everything that you need to resolve the issue, to, change the vibration in you that has been playing, like kind of like a not very nice song has been playing in your radio field, and just changing it and changing it back to beauty. When you do that, when you do the healing work, the shifting of the vibration, the lower being will be removed. It will simply no longer be able to access you, fall away from you, starve, and fall into demise. That is the best way to remove things. I think that very experienced psychics can maybe do a little bit faster work, a little bit deeper work, by going more direct towards entity, but they would still center themselves here first, of course. And maybe if it's an outside healer as well, who's experienced, who's doing it with this mindset, okay? There are some healers and stuff whose whole practice, for example, is entity removal, and sometimes that's really beautiful, but sometimes I've seen people that they're just, for example, just are a bit obsessed with negative entities, and they don't think about it like shifting your vibration and really releasing the absolute root cause. They'll just remove it on a surface level, which could be done, for example, by doing white light things or saging, a whole bunch. Yes, it will push it out of your field for a little bit. But then if you haven't resolved what has caused the issue in the first place, it may return. So, some people also will like try to defeat the entity and like get into like a battle with it or something. I've seen some people do channeling work who, not coming from that shamanic experience or a very experienced wise place, because not that you couldn't channel info on this if you wanted to, if you were coming from a wise place, but some people who are the one with the vulnerability or the issue, they'll channel the entity, and it's just like, oh my gosh, you guys, like, please don't do that, because as I say, if you don't have the right energetic structure and experience, confidence, wisdom, space, connection in yourself, that's where you can accidentally kind of make the issue worse for yourself, or if you're healing someone else or whatever you're doing. And as I say, it's really usually not necessary. It's everything that we ever need with anything is from here, is available to you here. And then if you get action steps or guidance from here to do things, with the entity or in your physical world, of course you do that and you trust that. But that is coming from here, and you are staying hooked into here. So that's the best way to move those things. There are things that you can do to enhance and support the process. The importance, again, is that vibrational set point of the word like support, not, to get rid and to be controlling, and which is a fear-based energy. To support removal, here are some things that you could do. You could hook into your heart and your center, practice connecting that You might even involve white light in that, but it's not about creating like a big shield from a place of fear. It's about, wow, I feel connected to source and I love this source energy and it does feel safety and it does keep me safe, so I'm going to bloom it into my field. You see how that's a different nuance, that's a different energy that I'm starting from, that's what I'm giving. You might ask your spirit guides and angels to help guide you, protect you, support you. You might use sage, purifying your field, purifying the spaces around you. You might do some magical work with the elements of water or fire, because water is very cleansing and renewal, and fire is purification and transmutation. You might, what Spirit was saying is also helpful and important, is keeping yourself healthy, your body healthy, have a clean diet, positive thoughts and positive thinking. That was really important when I was learning or being shown this from Spirit, is that, and I think it's because, I sense it's because a lot of people who do have negative attachments, part of the root or contributing issue is a lot of negative thinking and a lot of negative thoughts. So there's a lot of power in saying to you, hey, if you have this issue, think positively. You need to think positive thoughts. Okay, positive thinking. And then also things that create coherence. So actually like sacred music, beauty, those sorts of things, making your environment sacred and beautiful and spacious and coherent and beauty, because beauty is actually, like in nature, natural beauty, it is a very high coherence. It's the full expression of the God force of something. And when we say that's beautiful, that's what we're appreciating. So it's a high coherence, and it's very healing and nurturing and mending to any incoherence or ugliness in us. Ugliness is, what is distorted. Okay, so beauty, and just being mindful of the beliefs that you're having and what you're believing. So being mindful of truth, connecting to truth, not illusion. I'm just thinking what else Spirit wanted to share. I wanted to share with you a few things, that the common themes that commonly are the root issue going on when someone has a negative attachment. For example, super common one is poor boundaries, because this is about energetic boundaries. If you have poor boundaries with yourself, you're not honoring your own word, your own boundaries for yourself, or you're letting other people's, ignore your boundaries, or you're not taking responsibility, and if you're in a state of avoidance for your own power. Those things often create a issue with energetic boundaries and negative entities. If you have a victim mindset, for example, some people will get a negative attachment if they've gone through a trauma and they've been in a low place for a while, and they have like a strong story with a strong victim element. If you're in a state of powerlessness, worthlessness, those kinds of vibrations. Another thing that can contribute is if you've been spending way too much time in your mind. If you have a lot of mind energy and you just haven't really connected to your heart for a long time, or if you're someone who's probably not watching this channel, but someone that's like super logical and really 3D, they will often have attachments, or because it's just all mind and that lower dimensional area. That's why that hooks in there. And also if you are too psychically open in your upper chakras without also being embodied and grounded, and or if you live in a state of dissociation, whether that's a kind of spiritual escapism and spiritual dissociation of being out of body and doing heaps of psychic work without being rooted, or also just dissociation like in the sort of trauma world sense of it, where you're just disconnected from your embodiment and your body, and you're not really, your root chakra is not in good condition. and you don't feel safe, if you feel really unsafe, all those things can make you more of a match to a low attachment energy. And I wanted to give you guys just a couple of examples of how this works from my own experience, and maybe you can relate as well, because we're all going to have an interaction with a low entity, consciously or unconsciously, in your life, because we're all have that moving vibration and we're all healing. But I will say, over my journey, for example, it's gotten to the point where it's quite uncommon, and if there is something around, I know that it's super easy to just shift my vibration and move that. And for me, it will only happen if I'm having like a lot of massive stress, or something has to have happened in life for me to get so low that I would be on that spectrum. So I share that too, to tell you that like you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be able to like be in a really high vibration and be in bliss all the time. It's just staying enough out of that range, like a radio dial. So even if you're just in a neutral space or a more higher heart vibration, it's just not being in the low. So, and not being in there for super long. So I had these experiences with this grey alien kind of looking being. This was like 2-ish years ago, I think, maybe even 2.5 or 3. I would have this being, I started experiencing or being aware that it was coming to me at nighttime when I was just about to fall asleep, which is obviously a super vulnerable time. And that's just, if you think about it emotionally and energetically, that's when, if there's a noise, you kind of jump, stuff like that. It's where you're quite vulnerable. There's a vulnerability to that state. So, of course, if you have a trauma or a safety thing, you might have things come up in that state. So I was just about to fall asleep, and I would have this like silly grey being come and like, it was trying to like touch my head. It was probably trying to get like information or energy or something. And I would wake up and sort of see it or feel it right there and get really scared, and then have a hard time sleeping. And I remember one day it happened, and first I got really panicked. I was also kind of half asleep. It was kind of an astral experience as well, because I was sort of in my room, but I was also in the 4th dimensional level of it, because I was kind of half awake, half asleep, half astral projecting, but only half conscious, because I was kind of sleeping in it at the same time, which can happen. But I was awake enough to remember this and do what I did. So there was this being, and he was trying to touch my head, and I woke up, and I was super scared, and I got panicky for a minute. And then, of course, it didn't change, that it stayed there. And then I remembered, oh no, I need to change my frequency. So I dropped into a practice that I had pre-planned that I like to do, which was to just come into my heart. And I think I put my hand on my heart, and I just remember saying, I am love, I am love, I am love. So I remembered love, and I started to vibrate at love. And when I did that, this being just, to me, clairvoyantly, it just went poof, and it was like he was gone. And then I was like, oh, and then I think I eventually fell back asleep. So that was really cool, because it showed me a couple of things, and you hopefully a couple of things. One is that even if you are still feeling kind of like a fear, like, oh my goodness, with an experience, if you just get your vibration shifted enough. So I was like, I am love, but I still had some fear in myself, and it was okay. It's okay to be human. It just had to get enough. So if you just get enough out of range, it will go away. The other part was that it showed me how weak they are as well, because I was like, wow, I didn't really have to do that much for this guy to just no longer, be able to access me anymore. And it became a lot less scary after that. Because these beings, they thrive on the fear that can only happen if you are believing, fearful thoughts, and if you're reacting. When you don't go into fear, then they can't touch you, and you can still learn what you need to do. Fear is the glue. Fear is the glue in these situations. It's what makes it a loop so that they get fed, and then they can stick more, and then you get more scared, and then they can do something to scare you, and then you get more scared. Fear is the glue. If you don't contribute to the fear, you don't feel fear, you have so much more power, and they lose all their influence. So that was a really good learning. The thing is, and part of this story is very cool too, because a little while later, it came back. And I remember getting up in the middle of the night and being scared, and then being like to my guides, like, what the heck? Like, I thought I got rid of this guy. Why is this happening? Oh my gosh. And I was emotionally, I was feeling and sort of rambling like, oh my gosh, I felt like I don't have power. Like, why isn't my power working? I am love. I did the thing and it didn't work. And they were like, my guides were like, that right there, that's the hook. That's the belief. And it was a belief that was beneath, or just a deeper thing that I needed to see, that I had this thing of like, oh, if it doesn't go away immediately, I'm powerless. And I had this part of myself, or inner child, let's say, believing that I didn't have as much power as I actually do. And, that I don't have the power to have strong energetic boundaries. And what I needed to do was to do some processing of the childhood experience that was connected to, that emotion was connected to. And then once I did that mending with myself, that being never came back and has never come back. And I know now that even if I do have an interaction with a low entity, I'm not scared. I might be like, whoa, for a second, but it's okay, because I know the power of love, and I know my own power. And I share this with you to hopefully share with you about just like how strong you are as a being, even just dipping into your love, how you don't need to be afraid. And I have had times, like there have been times, there was one time a couple of years ago where I was working with some very deep trauma, and I did have to remove a parasitic entity, and I did work with it kind of like directly, but this is what I mean about nuance. It wasn't intentional. I was working with something emotionally that I was moving, and then I realized in my process with my guides and my psychic work, like, oh, there's a hook, there's a parasite thing going on here. So that's how I ended up working directly with it. I didn't sort of intend to sit down and get rid of this being and all that. It just was there. When I worked with when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh. And I said to my guides, okay, like, teach me, like, what do I do? I want to keep healing this. Show me what I need to do. And they helped me. And I think they said in that moment, they said, trust. And I was doing a kind of Kundalini shaking energy at the time. Like I was already doing it to move fear out of my body. And they said, trust. And I kept doing the shaky thing. And I remember that the entity, that when I did the shaky thing, I got this massive wave of even really intense fear. And I felt like it was coming from the entity, or perhaps the entity was just stimulating a deeper fear in me that was already there that needed to be cleared. But I remember thinking, at least for the surface moment, that the entity was trying to, because when you kind of, if you do move them, they may attempt to manipulate and like, enhance the fear, enhance the glue so that they can stay alive. So I got this extra wave of really intense fear coming up, and it was really scary. It was a really scary feeling that I had. It was really scary that this being was right there, but my guides were also right there, and I stayed connected to that at the same time. And they were saying trust. And I just kept doing what they were telling me to do, which was trust and just keep shaking, doing my shaking thing. And I basically ignored the entity, in that I didn't ignore it, like I knew it was there and what it was doing, but I didn't get more scared. I didn't engage with it. What it tried on me didn't work to make me more scared, and maybe that would have meant I would do something. I just stayed with my heart and my guides, and then it ended up that I did more of my shaking practice, and then I felt myself let go of the fear. I felt the fear emotion move out of my chakras, out of my body, and with that the entity was gone. Okay, so those are my tales about working with negative entities, and it's really important that you understand the power of the sun in your heart, and you understand that more than anything, this is all you need. Okay? And as I said, there are some nuances to this. As I said, if you're a very experienced practitioner and you're coming from a healthy place, you might be more direct, which can be a bit faster to remove things. It's always going to be unique to the individual, depending on what answers you get about the triggers that are associated and the guidance and support for your unique energy that your guides, etc., are wanting you to do, and what works for you and what you respond to. But generally speaking, this is the path, and the best protection is your heart. The best protection that you can ever have is connecting to God Force, remembering the God Force. If you ever have a negative entity, just do something within yourself that makes you feel connected to your God light, your God power. That might be calling on a spirit guide or an ascended being that you love and really feeling them in your heart. That might be connecting to source energy in your heart, and from a place of love and peace and security and safety in that, wrapping that around yourself. It's not something to be starting from fear in, but starting from love in. Okay, there's nothing stronger than love. My entire life has taught me that. There's only love. So I thank you for being here today. Please do like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, go to thesacredtemple.org, follow me on Instagram, and leave a comment and share with me about your experiences. Let's share together so we can maybe learn from each other. And all of that, of course, does help this work continue. And if you do find value in this, I really appreciate your presence and all those little steps that you can take, and maybe sharing it with someone just literally if it will help them. I hope that you have a good day, and thank you for being here.